guys, welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a little minute, which is kind of going to be the start of like every vlog video for the next couple of months, as I've explained before. But today I figured I would just film my July wrap up. I was on the fence about just doing July and August together because in July I only read 5 books, so I was like, kind of seems like maybe I should just wait until I have more books to talk about. But I decided to just do it. So this is what I read in July. Like I said, I only read 5 books because July was such like a transitional period for me. I had like my birthday and then I started my new placement, I started my uni subjects. So I had a lot going on in July, and so I'm not that shocked or surprised that I only got around to reading 5 books. However, I did read 5 good books, so, well, some of them were like okay, but overall it was still a good reading month. And then August I've read a bit more and had a few really good books come out, so yeah, I'm still excited to talk about. Not again, guys, you can't see me up close for a reason. Last night something bit my face and I'm pretty sure it was a mosquito and I just saw it buzzing around. But it bit my chin and it was so painful. Anyway, if you do see a red spot, it's not actually a pimple. It is actually a mosquito bite because it bit my face and my neck. So anyway, moving on. If you see me swatting at the air, that's what I'm swatting at because I refuse to get bitten again on my face. Like, ew. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you read in July. I know we're literally at the end of August. I'm going to ignore that. Pretend it's the end of July. Let me know what you read. What was your favourite book? If you read any of these books, they're kind of, I wouldn't say they're random books, but none of them were new releases. Minus one. So if you've read any of these, feel free to let me know down below. Let me know if you enjoyed them. And then at the end of August, so like at the end of this like coming week, I will film a what I read in August video. Will probably only be like 6 or 7 books. I don't think it's many more than July, but it is a few more. And maybe a bit more in depth about some of them because I read these in July. I remember most of them. However, I don't remember details as much, which is probably a good thing because maybe it will stop me from talking so much. So anyway, let's get into this video. The first book I read in July was A Taste of Golden Iron by Alexandra Rowland, and I gave this book a 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I read it through my library actually. It's not Kindle Unlimited, it's not a free book. Well, not that Kindle Unlimited's free because I have to pay for it, but it's not through that service, and I got this through my library. So if you are wanting to check that book out, I would recommend checking out your library. They might have it. And I really enjoyed this book. I'd been wanting to read this book for a while. So that and A Strange and Stubborn Endurance are 2 like fantasy queer books that I've seen a fair bit and that I wanted to check out and read this year. So I read A Taste of Golden Iron, and like I said, I really enjoyed it. We're following Kadu, who is our main character, and he is the Prince of, now there are a few names in here I might butcher. Arist is how I'm going to read it. He is the prince, his sister is the queen, and this fantasy world is quite interesting. It is spoken and, you know, kind of discussed in depth about what the world is like. The world building is really good and it's really interesting in this book too. There's a concept as part of the plot around, I really enjoyed the fantasy and the world building aspect of this book. I thought it was really unique, really cool. So there are these people who are called touch tasters, and essentially they can kind of decide to tell you what the purity of a metal is, because this kingdom, this fantasy world is massively built on coins and like how much access and how many like proper like pure metals you have and how many coins you have that are pure like gold or silver. And so touch tasters can kind of tell the purity of a coin and if it's fake, for one, and 2, what it's actually worth. And so that's just a cool aspect of the plot. But like I said, we're following our main character. He's the prince, and I really liked Kato. I think his representation around mental health and struggling with your mental health was done really well, and that was a big part of his plot. And then also just, I think with any books around someone in a high power like being a prince, the struggles and the pressures that come with being in such a high position, and how, you know, that privilege that you do have is definitely there, and, you know, having to acknowledge that like so many people have it far worse than you. But then with that also comes the struggles of being quite isolated, having so many eyes on you, and just all that anxiety I think one would feel in such high positions of power. And so Kato definitely struggles with, it's not like explicitly stated, I don't remember, but it's definitely like very like high forms of anxiety and having panic attacks. And I don't think at the time in the book that it was like very, not accepted, but there's very much like a stigma around like having anything wrong with you. And so Kato very much was struggling with that and trying to make sure people knew like he's okay and hiding in secret when he was having panic attacks. And so there was kind of like that element and the mental health element that I really enjoyed and thought was done really well. And so then we have our other main character, Evermere. Evermere, who he is a bodyguard. So the hierarchy system for the guards is really interesting in this book as well. Like I said, the whole world building is quite unique, and so the guard system is also really interesting, and like they get certain allowances to go and further their educations, and like it's not just being like military trained, it's like being trained in all these different forms of knowledge. It's really cool actually. And so Evermere gets promoted to be Kato's guard, and this is like the highest level of promotion you can get, is to be a part of the guards. And they, I believe, wear different colours as well for different like levels in hierarchy, which kind of reminds me of like the Grishaverse by Lee Barduga. But yeah, it was just really cool. And so Evermere and Kato are our two main characters, and we are following an underlying plot that was a bit predictable but was still interesting, and I still enjoyed it. I definitely like the fact that this was slow burn, like this was a slow burn romance between them, and getting to discover each other's kind of depths and different areas and different parts of them. And I really enjoyed that. The only thing that really kind of, I guess, like took me out a little bit was the ending, because we did get to see their kind of happy resolve, but then it was super abrupt, and I feel like it could have used a bit more at the end as well. And again, like I can never tell if it's just a me thing and I need a bit more just to see a bit more of that relationship, especially in slow burn books. I think it really pays off to have that slow burn, see them get together, but then get to see that after, because when it's just a slow burn and then we see them get together and then nothing else after, it can sometimes just throw me off a bit. So again, I'm not sure if it's a personal preference or other people felt this way, but I feel like the ending is what kind of threw me off a bit. But overall, really enjoyed it. Would recommend checking out if you're wanting a fantasy based slow burn book. I really liked it. Next, I actually have the physical version of this book, which I don't think I've ever really shown physical book in a wrap up before, so this is great. I read They Hate Each Other by Amanda Woody. I have a whole reading blog on this, so I won't go too much into it, but we're following our two main characters. We have Jonah and we have Dylan. And these two, this is set in high school in America. These two very much dislike each other. I will say it is promoted as like enemies to lovers. I wouldn't say it's enemies in the sense that if you read more adult books, it's enemies. Like it's not like Say I Do by Brie Apple and Scarlett Snow. It's not that enemies. Like it's, I think, fitting for their age in that they just really dislike each other, but it's really based on misconceptions of each other's lives and why they act the way they act. So don't go in thinking you're getting like an adult enemies, I literally hate you. I wouldn't say it's quite that strong. I would say it's like a really strong dislike. That does keep throughout the book though, because this also has the fake dating trope, but it doesn't just magically go away once they do start feeling attraction for each other. So I would say it was well done and again appropriate for their age. It's just definitely not like enemies. So just keep that in mind. But this book basically just follows these two and their lives, and both of them are going through a lot of different things in life. And I really loved just kind of the, I don't know, like not the innocence, but I guess the innocence of it, in that they are both dealing with quite heavy things in this world, but it's not done in a really dark way, and it just kind of keeps that lightness to it. Even in the sad and emotional times, it did get me. I did cry, I think, once in this book, but it was just beautiful. Like, it's just such a good high school romance. It has the tropes that I really enjoyed. I really liked the fake dating, because basically at the start of this book, these two end up sharing a bed like nothing happens at a party, and their friends hear about it, and their friends have been wanting them to get together for so long, and so they kind of come up with this plan to fake date to get their friends off their back. But over the course of fake dating, they obviously realise their attraction and their feelings for each other. There's no homophobia in this book, which is, again, I think just a really nice touch to it. It wasn't super heavy because of that. Like, they're both bi, I believe, both out. Like, that's just not the issue in this book, and I loved that. We have different friendships and we get to see those. We have some asexual representation in this book as well, and then we also have like good discussions around racism and what that looks like, especially for Dylan, and what that looks like in a small town that is quite conservative and predominantly white, and what that experience is like for him. I really enjoyed that. And then Jonah, I believe he's struggling with, I think it's his dad is just not really there, or is an alcoholic. So it's just dealing with like quite real life things, but still done in a way that you still feel like really happy and giddy while reading this book and about these two. And I also loved the progression of their relationship. I loved that we got to see them really dislike each other, but then really learn more about each other, and then by the end of it they were together. But it was done in such a way that if you need like smart, and if you need that form of like intimacy in a book, I don't know if you'll love this like I did, because there's not a sex scene in this book. And towards the end they have a discussion about having sex, and I loved that, because again, it felt age appropriate for them in high school. Not saying that teenagers can't have sex and don't have sex, absolutely they do, but I liked that it was a discussion for both of them, and how they kind of want to go about it with each other after they've kind of established like they love each other. It was just so sweet. Like, I just loved it. I really did really enjoy this book actually. I read it really quickly. I love the cover of this book. It's so beautiful, and it was just a great time. It's definitely one of my favorite like high school romances, because that's what it felt like. It felt like a romance. It wasn't there for a smart, it wasn't there for all of that. Like, it was these two people understanding each other and realizing they love each other, and had such cute intimate moments together of just like hugging and holding hands, and it really feeded me. Like, I love that kind of book. And so again, I think if maybe you need more, it might not be for you, but it's really great. So I would recommend checking it out. I gave it a 4.5 stars. I loved it. I thought it was really cute, and I would definitely read from this author again. Next, I read The King is Dead by Benjamin Dean. Again, another book I got through my library actually. I hadn't heard or seen this book anywhere. I just saw it on my library, and the kind of, I guess, sell for it was, it's like royalty meets Gossip Girl, and I was like, I'll give it a go. I liked this book. I didn't love it. I gave it a 3 stars. I liked some aspects a lot more than other aspects. Yeah, I wish it had more in some areas. I think would have really upped the mark for me personally. But we're following James, who he is the heir to the British throne, and his father has just passed away, and so now he has had to become king, and I think he's like 18, 17, like really young. And James, he is also mixed race, so he is a black king, which his father was white and his mother is black. And so, I mean, as I feel like you could imagine, the racism that is at an institutional level especially, and within the monarchy itself, within England, like, I think they handled the race issue and the racism really well in this book. And there are certain instances where like I was getting quite teary because of, I mean, like just how fucked up it is, but also how like the media treated him. It was brutal. In some bits it was definitely like really sad, and I think an accurate representation of what it would be like. I just thought it was a really important aspect of the book. However, and I thought it was actually pretty well written in those areas, and I highlighted quite a few things. The things that brought it down for me were the mystery intrigue was very predictable. I feel like they could have definitely gone like deeper with that mystery and really made it like quite interesting, and seeing and uncovering who really is doing this, because James, his personal life is getting told to the media and they don't know who's doing it, trying to bring him down and get him off the throne essentially. And so there's a few key characters that are all kind of suspects, but then the ending, I kind of figured who was going to be the person, and I think it was pretty predictable. So I do think, because this was also a shorter book, it was like only 200 pages, I think if they had more pages and were able to really interweave that mystery of who was doing it, it would have been a lot better. And then also the romantic plot lines in this book were a bit, I don't know, a bit all over the place, because we had our first person we were introduced to as a romantic interest, and then that quickly disappears due to the plot. But then there's like another person introduced, and it felt like it was just to further the plot and the mystery. But yeah, I don't know, I feel like the romance is definitely not a strong suit of this book, personally, anyway. But overall, I did enjoy it. I did think it was good. Like, I read it relatively quickly. However, there are just a few things I think would have made it a lot better. I think if it was longer, had more mystery intrigue into it, and had better and more stable romance plot lines, it really could have been quite a cool book. But I still would recommend checking it out if it sounds like something you'd enjoy. Then I read Accidental Bonds by Reynard. Again, not another book I'd expected to come out, but I read this and I really enjoyed this. We're following our two main characters, Victor and Elijah. So Victor, this is a Accidental Bonds, if you can't tell, this is a shifter story. So Victor, he is the alpha of this pack, and we kind of see like different packs throughout this story, and different like pack I guess politics, yeah, that's what, pack politics throughout this town, because it's a small town. And then we have Elijah, who is a mage, and he's just moved to this town. He's taken over the mage shop that's there, that primarily kind of helps with the different packs and helps different people. And Elijah has very much not wanted to be a pack mage, which is a mage who is a part of the pack essentially. And Victor very much doesn't want a pack mage either, because of his own past with mages, and very much dislikes them. And so Victor, his land, his wards around his land and then his land are deteriorating, and he doesn't know why. And so he calls Elijah for help, and there's again another underlying like plot line. They're just trying to figure out what is happening, and along the way these two kind of fall for each other, and it's very cute. I really enjoyed it actually. There's no M-preg in this story, which like I'm not really a fan of. Would not really read unless it's like Alexandra Hazard. So like the plot and the overall story I really enjoyed. Like it wasn't primarily around like pack hierarchy, like the pack was actually really cute together. I really enjoyed the friendships, and I really enjoyed the mage aspect of it too. So yeah, I enjoyed that. I gave it 4 stars. It was good. And then my favourite book of the month, which I again haven't read this author. I believe this is their debut book. It's going to be a series, which I'm really excited for. But yeah, I hadn't heard of it, and then one day I just saw it and I was like, I'll give it a go. I really liked the cover because it's not a shirtless male. I mean, it's a fantasy book, so generally fantasy books are a bit better. But the cover, I was like, oh, and then I read the synopsis for it and I was like, I'll give it a crack. And I loved this book. I'm still thinking about it a month later. So that should tell you something. Like I have been thinking about this book quite a bit recently, and I'm really excited for the second book to come out, which doesn't come out till next year. So I have to wait a bit, but it was great. So this book is, like I said, it's a fantasy based book. And again, another one that has no smart. So if you like fantasy books but you need a bit of smart, maybe this one won't be for you, because that was not here and I loved it. For me, it was perfect. But we are following our main character, Theo. So he is part of, let me try and pronounce this word. It's a reconnaissance team. I'm sure if I just looked up how to say it, I could, but he's part of a team that basically goes on missions throughout the empire. So they're from one country, but they go into other countries throughout the empire on these missions, which can be like rescue missions, it can be assassination missions that all come from their queen. And in this world there is magic and different kind of types of magic, like healing magic, different forms of it. And basically Theo is a part of this team. I loved the team. I really liked the team dynamics, learning about different people's positions within the team. That was really interesting and I really enjoyed that aspect. And so they are about to leave from one of their missions to go back home because they get to have a rest until they're sent out on another mission. However, the queen overrides that, and her son, I want to say his name is James, he is also a part of this team. And he has, I think it's healing magic. He has some form of magic. And he's also a part of this team. I really loved him too. He was a fave. And so they get a message from her saying no, they actually need to head north instead of going home. And so they're going through different lands and through the forest. And when they're in the forest, this is where they kind of get a sense that like something is going on. So they're meant to be going up north because there's been sightings of this group of people that are very isolated and not a part of the kingdom, and people haven't seen them for years. They are called the Sahir, and so that's where they're on their way to. But on the way there, they run into the survivor, Isan, who has burns all over, is in awful shape, and they don't know what's happened. He can't talk. And so they kind of have to change plans from there to try and get Isan somewhere safe. But along the way, the plot happens. They run into the Sahir people, and Theo ends up actually getting captured by them and is being taken to their lands. And so this book is a dual point of view, I believe. I don't think we get James's point of view, or maybe we do. It's different point of views, and I really loved this. At the start it was a bit slower, but that's because we were getting the world building, and I really appreciated that. I really loved the world. I was really immersed into it. I thought it was really cool. I could picture it quite vividly as well, and it was just really intriguing, especially towards the end, because the people that end up kidnapping Theo I think are going to be very intriguing characters. One in particular who The romance plot is meant to be between Theo and Hassan. However, there is one person that I feel like Theo also may potentially, it would definitely be enemies to lovers though, so I don't know if that is going to be the plot point moving forward, but I'm kind of hoping it is. But yeah, like I said, there's no, like, the romance is not formed in this book at all. This was definitely like a good setup of what's happening, where the plot is going, and then it is left on a bit of a cliffhanger for the next book. So no romance. Like I said, Hassan and Theo are definitely feeling like protective of each other and wanting to know more about each other and learn more, but then they are pulled apart by that plot at the end. And so there's, like I said, no smart in this book at all, and I loved it. I ate this book up. It was so good. I gave it a 4.5 stars, but now that I've been thinking about it so much, it's almost a 5-star. But I want to save that for what happens next in the series, because I think that will be a 5-star. But yeah, for their first book, I loved it. I thought it was well written. I thought the fantasy elements of it were really strong. I loved the characters, and I really like where this plot is going. It kind of has all the elements that I really like, and I just wasn't expecting this book, but I'm so here for it. So yeah, that was Dust to Ash by Lyra Haven. Loved it. Thought it was great. And those are all the books I read in July. I then started Summer Suns, but I technically finished that in August, so I'll talk about it in my August wrap up. Yeah, like I said, kind of random books, so let me know if you've read any of these down below. You know what you read, what was your favourite book? As I said, Dust to Ash was my favourite book, and They Hate Each Other as well was pretty high up there. So yeah, that's what I read. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your patience on this video. I know it's coming to you like a month late, but it's life. I apologise. I'll probably see you next time for my August wrap up and what's coming out in September. Until then, have a great day, have a great time whenever it is you watch this. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys then. Bye!